is the son of our inductee. I believe he was one of the greatest hitters our inductee, Jimmy Phillips, ever coached, from what I hear. And he's the one that nominated his dad, Jimmy Phillips. So introducing Jimmy Phillips into the Fox Fanfest Hall of Fame is Jimmy Phillips.
Well, actually, there's been a switch. And
I forgot.
Mr. Jimmy Cobb is going to introduce my dad.
Say something first. You gotta say something about you.
Okay.
Rose changed the program. Bring it up. We're gonna bring you up too.
Growing up as a kid, I don't think I could have had it any better. I was lucky at a very early age to love baseball, be taught the right way. I was fortunate enough to have a mother that loved watching her husband do what he did and never got in the way of that. It's hard for me because there were times he would tell me to do certain things and I didn't want to do them because I would rather go get 4 hits, whether it be singles or whatever, and he wanted to teach me, was trying to teach me to how to be a better hitter, not just somebody that was big and strong, and just to go out and just to get 4 hits. He wanted me to be the best that I could be. I was lucky that he saw something in me to where he always wanted to take me to the ballpark. And plus it helped that I did want to go with him. I wanted to be with him. He never told me, no, I'm too tired to play catch. Whether it be football, baseball, he never told me, wait a minute, let me sit down, let me rest for a minute. He never told me that. I could go on, and but I love you.
Thank you, Jimmy, and I'll tell you what, I want you to, we want to bring you and your dad to the Ranger game up in the suite. He can take the elevator. Can you come with us on the 25th? You want to bring Dad to the game?
Sure.
We're going to the game, Dad. What do you say? We're going to bring you to the Ranger game. Sit in the suite. All right, this is the guy that's supposed to be introducing Jimmy, but I love Jimmy. This is the guy that managed the American Legion team that Jimmy coached, the Texarkana Indians, who I hear were like the greatest American Legion team ever in Texarkana from 68 to 84. You had to have a great manager. Here he is, Jimmy Cobb. Come on up, Jimmy. He's got a new Achilles tendon.
I look over here on Jim's right. This is a guy that always gave the scouting report. And when he'd come and give the scouting report to us, Jim Phillips would say, you think we need to show up? But Louis was right most of the time, especially when he reported on, guess who? Arlington Sam Houston. Arlington Sam Houston. We were playing Arlington Sam Houston, and they were giving our first baseman kind of a hard time. His name was Darryl Pickett. Pretty tough guy. And this coach came up to Coach Phillips and he said, Coach, I want to tell you, I got a couple of Golden Glove players on my team. You know what Coach Phillips said? Line them up. Line them up. Mike Cobb said that he told him, he said, now some people like to hit, hold their hands up here like this, where they get that high pitch. They like that high pitch. They love it. Some of them like to hold their hands down where they get that low pitch. I hold my hands here where I can hit any pitch. But that was him. Another thing that I want to tell you about him with his sense of humor is one night, Richie Covey was playing third base, and a good player, real good player, made a great play. Threw it about 50 feet over the first baseman's head. Coach Phillips says to him, Richie, you made $1 million play and a 10-cent throw. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that he had a sense of humor, but he was a great coach and a great mentor. In fact, he was a good athlete. He grew up in Saratoga. When he was 16 years old, he played for a semi-pro team that was made up of men, and he was outstanding. My uncle in Nashville told me how good a player he was. I could go on and tell you more stories about him, but back in the day that he played, you didn't have a whole lot of scouts, and you didn't have a whole lot of kids sign contracts. But he actually was offered and signed a contract to play minor league baseball, but he was injured while he was in the service playing baseball and didn't get to play. But he was an outstanding athlete. And when he started coaching the American Legion team, and I want to say something about Pat because he coached, and I was a general manager, if that's what you want to call me. Pat did all the work, ran the concessions and lined people up. And she's the one that made it work, didn't she, Jim? He's not saying much. One other story that I wanted to tell about Jim is that most people, probably he and I are the only ones that know this. The year that we won the state championship in 1982, Cheesy Nelson at Texarkana College called me. He says, you've been talking about us starting a baseball program at Texarkana College. I want to talk to you. And this was all because of the success of the American Legion, especially in '82. So I go talk to Cheesy, and Cheesy tells me he wants to start a baseball program in Texarkana, and the only way that he would start the baseball program is if Jim Phillips would be the manager or the coach. And if you go back and look, 30 years of baseball at Texarkana College, they had 3 coaches come through there. One is now coaching at the University of Arkansas, one at A&M, and one at Sam Houston. That program and those coaches would have never been in Texarkana if it hadn't been for Jim Phillips and the American Legion program. Most people don't know that story. But in closing, the other thing I want to mention is that in Little League, in Pony League, every kid would tell you they wanted to play for Coach Phillips and the Indians. And Texas High coach told me several times that the reason that they were successful at Texas High is because of that American Legion program. So the real thing, though, that I remember more about him than anything else is I was talking to my son-in-law, Randy Lacey. I said, if he calls a coach and says, I've got a kid you need to look at, then that coach said, send him up here. And I said, I would like to just listen to what he tells these coaches, because whatever he tells them, 3 weeks later, that kid has gone over there to play baseball. He said, I'd just like to be a fly on the wall and see what he says. I may learn something. But the other thing in closing, that Jim Phillips has the most loving and caring heart of any person I've ever been around. My son, my youngest son, has gone through a lot of medical problems. Jim called me every week to check on the bird, as he calls it. It's an honor to introduce you, Coach. Thank you so much for what you've brought to Texarkana and so many kids that you've affected.
so much, Coach Cobb. Coach Cobb has really done a lot for Legion Ball and me. But I just want to thank you that the people that helped me get in this Hall of Fame. And I started out in 1968. We had kids from Texas and Arkansas, but even then we only had 13 players. And I was helping a guy, one of the best friends I ever had, Buddy Greenwood, and Buddy had to change shifts or something, so I took over coaching. And like I said, we had 13 players. I didn't even have a uniform, and the kids shouldn't have had any because they were terrible. But anyway, after 3 or 4 years, we just had Texas kids. And we had some great players. And usually Texas High had a real good program. But I couldn't have done this without my wife. She done so much for us and run the best concession stand there was. And my family is here, Billy Jack and his family. He got twin boys and a little girl, 14 years old. And you don't want to get too close to her. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. And Nikki's family is here, and Jimmy's wife and her family. But anyway, like I said, it wasn't a coaching, it wasn't hard because we practiced all the time. And all of our pitchers, they threw batting practice. But we played some good teams, and we tried to play the best team we could play. And we won the state in 1982. But the best team we ever had was in '81. We got beat in the playoff in the final game in extra inning in Texas City. And then the next 2 years, we would runner-up. But I remember when we first started, we didn't have too much money. But after a while, we had big crowds all the time, and we made a lot of money in the concession stand. So we was okay. And we had real good help from the newspaper, especially Johnny Green. Johnny done so much for Legion Ball. And at the time, the television man, George Dobson, he was real good to the Legion. And we lost him up around Oklahoma in a tournament. He had a massive heart attack. But anyway, what I was proud of mostly, I got over 50-something kids scholarships, and we had 11 boys that signed pro contract. But I even got a couple of kids scholarship that never played for me. I got a kid, Coach Cobb remembers him, named Ralph Krause from Plano, Texas. One of the University of Arkansas assistant coaches, he didn't want to take him, but I got Coach O'Brien to take him. He was the player of the year in the Southwest Conference last year. But the way that I got the kids scholarship, you can't lie to these college coaches, you got to be honest with them. But I had real good assistant coaches. I had Jerry Larson. Jerry played for me, one of the best players I ever had. Had a great pitching coach, Buddy Greenwood. And what's so sad, Buddy passed away when we was in Amarillo the year we won the state. And we didn't know about it until we got back. But anyway, all in all, I think we had the best program in the state of Texas when I left. But coaching wasn't hard for me because I've been in baseball all my life. And somebody asked me about coaching my son. Well, my son wasn't hard to coach because he probably liked to play more than I did. And he was a good hitter because I wore my arm out pitching to him. But baseball, Texarkana is a good baseball town. And every kid used to, most all the kids wanted to play for the Indians. They'd be hanging on the fence out there waiting on their turn. And we also had a lot of kids from out of town that played, you know, the surrounding areas. But all in all, I enjoyed every bit of it. It wasn't hard for me. And talking about Jerry Larson, Jerry, about a third inning, Jerry would always have the opposing team signaled, so we were ready. But the secret of having a good program, I don't care what age group, you better have a good catcher. And I promise you, I always had the best catcher between the teams that were playing. I always had the best catcher. I had one that played at Texas A&M, but every catcher I had was really good. But the toughest game ever hurt me was the Texas City game. And I can remember exactly the way it ended. But the next year, we come through the loser bracket and we won it all. And I can tell you who threw the last pitch, Danny Presley. I said, we had a big lead, and there were 2 men out. They put a pincher hitter in, and Danny went 3-2 on him. I said, Danny, that boy's a pinch hitter. That's why he ain't playing. I said, just lay it in there. And he just laid it in there, and he hit a shot to left center. And Tuna Breland run it down. But all in all, baseball had been great to me. I really didn't. I went to school at Saratoga High School, but I grew up in OK, Arkansas, which is not even a town there anymore. Of course, there was only one store there when I grew up. But I played baseball in Mineral Springs with some great players. I was 16 years old. The right fielder was 40 and the left fielder was 40. Every time a ball go up, they said, go get it, Jimmy. And I usually did. But I could always hit because me and another boy, we grew up swinging at a coat lid with a broom handle. If you can hit a coat lid with a broom handle, a baseball looks big. But I'm really proud of all my former players coming out here, and I appreciate everything you've done. And I forgot to introduce my brother and his wife. Y'all stand up. Thank you so much. I believe that's all I got to say.
I think that's the most Jimmy ever said in one speech. Hold on, Jimmy. Now, I've talked to Jimmy about 4 times, and one thing I'll tell you I learned. He'll never forget that game in '81 in Texas City. Jimmy, I have something for you, sir. This is your trophy. You are being inducted into the Fox Fanfest Hall of Fame. Photo op. We're going to go down to Texas.